Hello, everyone, once again. This is Rob, and welcome back to Media Awareness and another film review. This time, we're going to be talking about the Netflix original Rebel Moon, Part 1. Before I continue, however, do want to remind you all that the fundraiser continues. For those of you unaware, I am a disabled individual, and I use a motorized wheelchair slash scooter all day, every day for my independence, and I desperately need your help. My insurance will not cover anything with regard to my scooter, as it's viewed as a luxury item by them, and therefore I'm reaching out to you, my YouTube community, in order to maintain my current level of independence in my everyday life. My independence is of the utmost importance to me, and the less I have to rely on individuals in my everyday life to assist me, the better I feel personally about myself, and the easier it is on everyone all around. I'm also unable to use a standard wheelchair or any other type of scooter due to my dexterity issues and only having use of one hand primarily. So, with all of that said, there is a spot fund account linked below in two places. Below this video directly in the description and in a separate section in the description as well. Donate what you can, it is all appreciated. And if you're not able to donate, like and share and make people aware as media awareness will grow as I will continue. So, Rebel Moon, there's been a lot of banter on the internet about this since it was released a few days ago, and I watched it last evening. Now, before I get into spoiler talk, I do want to make some clarifications, at least on my perspective. Having some background on this being pitched to Disney as a Star Wars um, film of some sort at one point in time and being turned down. And I'm not a Zack Snyder fanatic. I've only seen a handful of his films, if that. And so I'm not in this group of people that are basically defending Zack Snyder, nor am I in this group of people that are um, basically bashing Zack Snyder. I am neutral in this, and I didn't really know anything going into the film other than what I saw in trailers. A friend of mine proceeded to tell me what he had heard of the plot um, prior to me watching it. And I tuned him out for the most part because I wanted to see it for myself. And I was excited to see it for myself. So I watched it for myself. And here's where the spoilers will come in. I do have a cheat sheet pulled up here, so I do apologize for the glare on my face. It is brighter than normal. I haven't changed into a vampire yet. Waiting for New Year to do that. So at the moment, I just want to be able to reference these names since they're all new to me, um, and basically describe the plot for you. And if you have seen this, uh, I really hope you have. Uh, and the reason I say that is because it's a very different film. Uh, with people's um, comparisons, for lack of better words, with Star Wars and other franchises, I don't feel that comparisons should or could be made with this film. And if they are, they could be made with any film for that matter, because it's all relative in the grand scheme of things. Everything borrows from something else. So, with that stated, our main character of Korra is a woman um, residing at the current time as the movie opens on a basically farming planet, harvesting these wheats for the Imperium. And she has a secretive sort of personality, but we know she is the main character. But it's clear that she's hiding something about who she is and about her past. At least it's clear to me. Apparently, it's not clear to a lot of other people, but that's what I was able to pick up on immediately. Uh, so, when this ship arrives from the main like the main world of the Empire itself, the Imperium, um, and they send down a battalion to basically to assess the output of grain and wheat and see whether or not the planet is worthy of basically taking what they have to offer. Now, there have been questions raised about, well, why this planet specifically, etc., etc. And if you're part of a galactic empire or an imperium of sorts, there is going to be a price that you pay for being part of that. This borrows more from Foundation and Isaac Asimov's Foundation, for those of you unaware, and Frank Herbert's Dune than Star Wars, in my opinion. But that's just me, as well as Clash of Titans, Kroll, and other franchises. There's a lot in this film, but I digress. So, the battalion uh, basically shows their might and very, very quickly subjugates these people by eliminating their leader. Once this battalion is ready to leave, they leave behind some soldiers to basically take up residence there and make sure the people have the output of wheat that they need for the time that they will return in not not very long from when they arrived, and it's really a really tight time frame to be able to have that output. But that's what they were given to do, and the battalion of individuals aren't exactly um, your most gentlemanly sort. And the way I'll describe them here is they are James Cameron's Marines, for lack of better words. From Aliens, from Avatar, that's what they remind me of. They remind me of these real, disrespectful, hard ass individuals that basically want to get their job done, want to have some fun, and want to get out of there and move on to the next place. Now, with that being said, there is a young girl named Sam, and she uh, is depicted as this gentle woman, and she is sort of targeted by these individuals as they want to have fun with her. Now, prior to this, she had actually befriended a robot known as a Jimmy, and these robots apparently used to fight for the Imperium, and they no longer do so. They were kind of neutered of that ability. They can't harm others. So she put this sort of um, flowered crown that she was wearing on the Jimmy robot, and she tells her a story about this princess and how this princess had magical powers, and that um, she reminded him of this princess, and she's flattered by that and goes off. So what? By the time, a short time later, when she is being assaulted by the men, uh, our main character Cora hears what's going on, and at that point she snaps and just takes them all out. And we don't know about her background yet, so it's like a really intense scene with her taking them out in such precise militaristic fashion. You get an idea in your head, at least I did, that there's more to her than meets the eye, and there is. And she then proceeds to rally the individuals and tell them that, she's going to go off with Gunner, and they're going, because Gunner has some contacts that are part of this rebel faction that is rising up, and he might be able to hook her up with them. And they go across various landscapes in this world, and she relives a flashback from when she was a child. And at that point, she was gunning down enemy soldiers left and right, and um, that is when she comes face to face with Boris Elliot, Bar, sorry, Belisarius, who is basically the head uh, military guy of the uh, Imperium, and her world was being wiped out by him and his people. And he comes right after her, puts his gun down, very honorably, and picks her up. She's still holding the gun that she has. He aims it right under his chin and pulls the trigger for her, and nothing happens. Presumably, he knew that it was not going to go off. It wasn't loaded or whatever, and he proceeds to whisk her away and raise her as his daughter, and she becomes a very high-ranking individual in the military of the king. And her name, in actuality, is um, Arthelinius. I believe that's how it's pronounced. That is her actual name, not Cora. But she goes by Cora because she doesn't want to be associated with who she used to be. This killing machine, basically. Because that's what she's raised to be. And I I like the flashbacks. I like the whole sequence. There is a prologue that is sort of told to you, as opposed to being presented in text fashion. And I think that was off-putting for a lot of people because audio prologues very seldomly work. People are very visual in nature anymore, and unless they see something, they view it immediately as exposition. And if they read it, they're more inclined to think, "Oh, I need to know this." Um, that's something I've observed over the years. So, uh, they that once they realized that the gunner was going to hook them up with, is being taken away by the military in this really neat contraption, I might add, that I really liked the design of. Uh, they go into a bar because Space franchise has a bar, um, and a lot of people are saying cantina because we're making the Star Wars analogy. And I'm sorry, get over yourselves. Um, and they go in there, and by this point you've had the first flashback, so you know about Korra and about her initial um, uh, fight and the reason she is who she is. She was raised as a machine, basically, to fight as a military defender. And there's some dialogue when she's back on on the planet that we start on that she was raised after being found at a crash. So you can basically presume what happened there. And it's not something that we really need to know either. It's some minor background, but I think it was nice to have that in there. Um, she, unlike other characters I will not mention, did not want to leave this world. She wanted to stay there. The last thing she wanted to do was get back in the fight. But she gets back in the fight. And she and her friend Gunner enlists the um, assistance of, let's see here, they enlist the assistance of Kai, who is a pilot, and their goal is to basically put together a um, menagerie of individuals that are skilled in various ways to fight and basically in the process make connections with the actual rebel faction that is rising up. Presumably, if it is real, because they still don't really know if it is or not. And Kai from the beginning is a very dicey individual, but you get this feeling halfway through the story, roughly, maybe a little more than that, that he's turning over a new leaf. He's starting to maybe have a change of heart, and he basically tells them that after they make this one last run, uh, that he'll um, become part of their group and fight alongside them, as opposed to being a smuggler of goods. I know what you're thinking, smuggler is Han Solo, but he is anything but Han Solo. He's got the sarcasm, however, that can be said about any uh, film such as this. I thought of Metal Storm, the destruction of Jared Sid. I also thought of Space Hunter, Adventures in the Forbidden Zone, and some other films that really had this quality about them. So, with all that stated, they finally do make contact though with the rebel group and very rapidly enlist the help of um, Darian Bloodaxe, who is the brother of uh, the one of the leaders of this group, and he rallies some of his people to also um, be uh, in the fight with him and go up against them because it's explained as it makes sense. If they are going up against the same people, why not fight together and why not help each other? That's kind of the line I'm sort of at that, and it's also implied that if the enemies found these other worlds and know about this resistance that is building, they are definitely going to need help, and they're going to need more than what they have. So they take off from there, and um, there is a character that uh, is um, basically a recurring villain throughout this particular part of this film series, and his name is. Please forgive my mispronunciations here. Um, Adlake Noble. Um, Adlake Noble. We'll call him Noble though, even though he's anything but noble. And his goal is to basically just make himself look good and make a legacy for himself. Now, I don't see that being too far removed from a lot of people, historically speaking. Um, they're all about themselves, not necessarily pleasing others or, impressing anyone else but themselves. So, Noble wants to get a hold of Cora because he eventually figures out who she is, and uh, he is very sadistic, and he's on a mission to really take her down. And once they're on this sort of unloading platform, basically shipping out what the smuggler had brought in on his ship, and um, getting the ship cleared out, presumably to have room for more individuals to join up. They're very rapidly betrayed by him, which I did not see coming, and the enemies swoop down, and um, Noble is there, and he is commanding. Um, let's see here. Gunner to uh, basically, once he has this group of several individuals um, held captive, where they're unable to move, they're on these, for lack of better words, upright structures almost that hold you bound in place, and there's a place in the back of the skull portion for them to insert this device, which will then take out your memories and presumably brain as well, if inclined to do so. And he tells Gunner to do this to Cora, and Gunner turns around, attacks, and they break out of these devices, and the fight ensues. And um, during this fight, Darian Bloodaxe meets a very untimely fate. He basically lunges at this ship that is taking out a vast majority of the people, and he makes certain to hit the self destruct, presumably, or possibly the gravity control. I'm not sure which, but whatever happens, an explosion occurs, and the ship starts to go down in this atmosphere that they're in. And during this, Gunner is doing his best to help others where he can, and Cora is going up against Noble. And it's a really intense moment with Cora and Noble, and during one of the other flashback sequences that you saw with Cora, you saw her protecting the princess directly, and witnessing some pretty magical things. So she had actually risen in the ranks pretty damn far. So she had a good amount of power in her arsenal personally. So she knew what she was doing. She knew how to fight. She knew how to evade fire, and she is kicking ass with um, Noble, and eventually Noble gets knocked off of this platform that they're on, and falls. Presumably, it's assumed at that point to his death, even though it's not his death. He is salvaged from there by the enemy after our rebels um, uh, depart. But they gather together and they take what's left of their ships and fleet, and they return to the planet where Korra and Gunner started out, and they basically at that point uh, imply and actually say that they're going to raise an army there. And you see the Jimmy robot in the foreground at one point there, and it's sort of implied that he's going to also be playing a larger role than in the second installment. Now, people have really uh, come at this film from a lot of different angles as far as the character development being lacking, and I am really a stickler for character development. But I feel that the character Korra was developed very well. The thing about Korra is she doesn't have an arc. She already is the person that she is. We're told about her background and why she became the way she is, and that right there gives us all we need to know, in my opinion. And I like that in this film. I also like the uh, the way that she interacts with Gunner, and she really doesn't lead him on, and he doesn't really make any advances towards her. It's a very subtle attraction, but it's implied, and it's also stated that they do are fond of each other. But who knows how that's going to go. As far as the other side characters that they pick up along the way to help them in their fight, there is very little background given on these characters. There's just a blank slate for the most part, but there is an outline given for each. Why they are in the circumstances they're in, and why they're necessary for the team, essentially. And that is something that I think will be expanded on in part two. I do feel that we'll be getting more backstories because we had flashbacks for our main character Korra in this, and too many flashbacks can bog down a film, and I feel that it was just enough to give us what we needed to know about Korra and about how she felt about things, and we still don't know why she decided to defect from the Imperium themselves, and uh, you can assess that it could have something to do with the loss of the king, as he is implied to be dead, and it could have something to do with that, but we don't really know for certain. The other characters, as I said, they are interesting characters, and I'd like to see more development on those characters, and I feel like that's coming. It feels like it was set up that way. Uh, there is a definite Clash of the Titans moment from the original Clash of the Titans, and I would have loved to have seen this creature that is tamed done in Ray Harryhausen style, as opposed to being done with CG. But of course, that style is not exactly popular anymore, so people would complain over that. Not that they're not complaining as it is, but here's my takeaway, and I'm going to minimize my cheat sheet here because I think I'm basically about done. Uh, Once the enemy individuals uh, retrieve Noble, they have him uploaded, his consciousness uploaded to speak to Belisarius, and uh, he is on this sort of alternate uh, computer generated sort of terrain, and uh, Belisarius is basically telling him that he wants the girl. Now that they know where Cora is, and that's should be his main focus, to bring her to him alive, and that he is not to fail in this. Um, and I do honestly think that uh, people were making comparisons because of the names uh, to Warhammer for 40K. And although I do not know a lot about that, these names in this film, Belisarius, Imperium, and other such titles, are historical titles. Yes, they were used in Warhammer, but they are historical titles. So I think it was more than justified drawing on those. It's no different than George Lucas using the hero's journey for Luke in Star Wars. We don't get the hero's journey in this story because our hero, Cora, is already it. She doesn't have the journey. She's already the person that she is. And we see how she became that person, but we don't need to have her develop any further. She's fine as she is, in my opinion. And I really think that the movie does a great job in telling this story, and I, for one, can't wait for part two. I know I might be one of the few saying that, but as soon as part two is available to stream, I will be streaming it, and or the extended cut of part one, as Rebel Moon, in my opinion, is really great. Every science fiction film or television series or whatever, they all have detracting factors, and they all borrow from each other and from other genres. So this is tied to Star Wars because I think of Zack Snyder's idea being pitched to Disney, and individuals immediately jumping to all these conclusions. Well, this is related to that. This is parallel to this or that, and that's not necessarily the case, in my opinion. So you know, from a writing perspective, I think this is a pretty damn good film. Um, I like the plot. I like the main character. I do hope to get more about the other characters in part two. If I don't, I will be saddened because there is potential to learn about these characters. And I'm looking forward to an extended cut, which may even shed some light on these other characters. But it was shaved down for the sake of both Netflix time as well as getting a PG rating, PG-13 rating as opposed to R. So we shall see what's to come with Rebel Moon Part 2. If you have seen Rebel Moon Part 1, what do you think of this film? And be honest. I, like I said, I was impressed. I thought the visuals were really stunning. I thought that it was a solid plot. It does have similarities here and there, I think those similarities would be less um, noticeable, less obviously pointed out if Zack Snyder had pitched the idea to Disney and been rejected. Also, another thing came to mind, and I want you all to keep this in mind as well. A certain individual named Seth MacFarlane had pitched an idea. He wanted to be part of the new Star Trek writing team, and he was turned down. So what did he do? He turned around and made the Orville, and the Orville is incredibly similar to Star Trek, yet incredibly successful in that same regard. People don't bash on it the way they're bashing on Rebel Moon, and I don't know whether or not it's because it's a different demographic, a different fan base, but pretty much now that the fan bases are intertwined these days. With all of that stated, I'm going to watch Rebel Moon 1,000 more times and enjoy it every damn time. Because to me, it's actually great. And could it have been better? Yes. Could it have been worse? Yes. But you know what? It's entertaining science fiction, and I enjoyed it immensely. This is Rob with Media Awareness, and I hope you enjoyed this review of Rebel Moon, the Netflix original Zack Snyder film. Have you seen it? What do you think? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you all soon. Have a wonderful morning, noon, or night wherever you are, and a splendid holiday. Take care. Bye.